was a time that a 7-year-old could walk into a store with a note. Hi, Mr. Willie. Hi. Hi, baby. What your aunt need today? She need a pack of Coos and a Schlitz malt liquor. Okay, let me see the note. Here you go, Mr. Willie. Hello there, love bugs. Hello there, bellas. If you have not already done so, please remember to like, share to Facebook and or Twitter, subscribe, and visit uptopbeauty.com. All sunshades are $20. That's right, $20. Like I told y'all, I'm fitting to move back to DC, and I need a little pocket change. And if you are not already a part of this book club, please hit the Patreon link below and or the join button here on the YouTube. And for a small monthly fee of $5, you babies, yes, you can be privy to all the shenanigans before the YouTube gets it, if the YouTube gets it. Now, Lulu back there tripping, he on one. Now, let's continue talking about Mary Wells. Mary didn't like being detained, Curtis said. She liked to do what she wanted to do. She didn't believe anyone who told her that if you don't do this or that, you won't make it. Womack offered various other reasons why Wells liked to make what he called daring moves, such as ignoring a potential serious medical problem. Mary liked getting people upset. It made her feel powerful, and she liked getting attention. He said at various times while discussing the subject, you know, my mother died from heart disease. And part of the reason why it went as far as it did was because of this very reason. If she just wasn't that person, she could have been here much longer with us. Wells herself put her reason for avoiding doctors more succinctly. Her condition wasn't a possibility I wanted to admit, she said. It didn't help, health-wise, that Mary clung stubbornly to her decade-long smoking habit. My mother was also a smoker. As she became thinner and more ill during the 1980s, there was nothing I could say or do to help her or stop her from smoking cigarettes, Martha Reeves said. I watched my mother try to stop smoking cigarettes. And smoking cigarettes is what attributed to her death. But I watched her try, and it was so hard for her. Like, I think, to me, they say that Juggy is the hardest drug to stop or physically stop. But I'm going to say cigarettes is indeed the hardest. Well, cigarettes and alcohol, I would say. And my mother didn't have an alcohol issue, but them cigarettes, man. Some of us who are of a certain age, our mamas or our aunts or our grannies, whoever, used to send us to the store with a note saying it's okay for we to buy these cool lights. Hi, Mr. Willie. Hi. Hi, baby. What your aunt need today? She need a pack of Coos and a Schlitz malt liquor. Okay, let me see the note. Here you go, Mr. Willie. Thank you. Each night when she sang, her voice became fainter and fainter, Reeves continued. On song after song, she would ask the audience to sing it along with me so that she didn't have to use up her voice. Off stage, I would watch helplessly as she smoked one cigarette after another, destroying what precious little voice she had left. In February 1987, 1 year after Mary had missed her performance date in Toronto because she had been kidnapped, she and Reeves appeared at the City Imperial Room for a new engagement. Wells' body was there, all right. The Toronto Star Reviewer noted, but her voice was a breathy, shapeless fog that drifted into ether every time she opened her mouth. In 1989 and 1990, however, while Mary was recording the songs that became the album Keeping My Mind on Love, Her voice began actually cutting off. Wells may have been able to fool an audience with her cold and flu story, but her two handlers knew something was seriously amiss. They began taking steps to hide her condition, which continued to worsen. I need handlers. Wells performed on a cruise ship, shuttling back and forth to Santa Catalina, a resort island off the California coast. Mary had no voice left, Porter said. He said the people who had hired Wells to perform were very upset. We escaped off the ship as soon as we could. The situation reoccurred on another cruise vessel Wells performed on in May 1990. Wells' condition was severe, but whoever made this date had chosen well or chosen lucky. The audience was made up of wealthy people on a religious cruise. When Mary whispered to the audience that I'm really having some trouble, Curtis said they really seemed to catch on to it. According to Curtis, while the cruise passengers dressed casually during their day and night, they dressed up like the Love Boat. Soon we'll be making another run. The Love Boat promises something for everyone. Oh, that was my shit. And right after Love Boat, child, we used to watch Fantasy Island. The plane, boss, the plane. Elegant, bejeweled ladies with beautiful white hair would pray for Mary after the show and offer her places to go where she could get treatment. Some invited her to stay in their summer homes. They tell her, you won't have to sing until we can find out how to get you well. Unlike the Catalina cruise members, the execs on the ship, pleased with the audience's response, displayed no anger. The 5-day cruise also allowed Wells to relax, since she was required to perform only once on the way out and once on the way back, and was able to spend the rest of the time sunning herself in a deck chair. That was the good news. The bad news was that in her cabin, Wells' throat would begin to spasm and her legs would kick out violently and involuntarily. Something's choking me, she'd whisper frantically. Something's choking me. I can't breathe. Womack called the onboard doctor and nurse who treated Wells by administering oxygen from a tank. Eventually, Mary's spasms would subside. This experience, combined with months of increasingly urgent pleas from her friends and her doctors, finally forced her to seek medical assistance when she got ashore. The doctors had some bad news for her. She had an advanced case of cancer of the larynx, or voice box, and it was a particularly aggressive form of cancer. It was at this point that Steve Bergsman entered Mary's life. He often wrote about 1950s and 1960s era singers and had been talking to Joyce Moore, who, like Bergsman, was a Phoenix area resident, about a biography of Jackie Wilson. After Mary called Joyce, Joyce put Mary and Steve in contact and suggested Steve talk to Mary for a prospective Wells biography. Mr. Bergsman, thank you very much for your contribution to this book. Peter Benjamin's son, you did an exceptional job with your research and your fact-checking. I appreciate you. He soon began his extensive interviews. Wells' treatment proceeded in stages. Before her doctors had given her the initial cancer diagnosis, they had removed polyps, abnormal growths of tissue from her throat. To enable her to breathe, the doctors also had been forced to perform a tracheotomy, cutting a hole in her neck and inserting a breathing tube. Now they were recommending a laryngectomy, or removal of Wells' larynx, which includes the vocal cords, to prevent the malignancy from spreading. She knew that a laryngectomy would cause her other problems also. Removal of the voice box is devastating. Pause. Okay, I'm not going to do a lot of laughing and joking about this because, I just went through this with my wife. Yeah, and we still got a little bit ahead of us. For a singer to lose her moneymaker or his, her, whatever. Oh my goodness, I could imagine how devastating that is to someone. That's your bread and butter. Even me as a YouTuber, if I couldn't use my voice, do you know how much money that would take out of my income? Monthly income? Oh my God. Wells' fear of permanently losing her voice may have occasionally pushed her over the edge into irrationality. Well, I don't know about that, because this part right here is a bit over the top, but I mean, it's Mary. Okay, and what she's going through right now is quite scary, but it is Mary. And I mean, I'm not surprised. Among the physicians who urged her to have a laryngectomy were a group recommended by vocalist Dionne Warwick. When they recommended removing her vocal cords, Wells told them, "You're going to take them out and give them to some white girl." According to Curtis, who was present, shocked, one doctor blurted out, "No white girl wants your cancer, Mary." On to Jesus. Mary decided to forego the laryngectomy and began receiving 6.5 weeks of intensive radiation at the USC Kenneth Norris Jr. Cancer Center. Let me tell you something. And I keep going to the left because, like I said, we just been through this. We're not completely over the hump because we got some other situations to go through. When I was going through the chemo treatments with my wife, just for me to be there with her was devastating. They call that shit the red devil. Picture one of them, and I'm not even trying to be funny, but picture one of them old-fashioned douchebags that be hanging from the, shut up, Lou, that be hanging from the shower in your grandma's house. Okay, picture one of them. All right, and you know your granny, either she used it for a douche or enema, whichever, hole you stick it in, but it's to cleanse, whatever you're going on inside of you out. Right. Why was we using douches? Considering it, I'm like, oh my God. Okay, but anyway, don't use douches, ladies, because they supposed to be not good for your pussy. Picture that, and it's see-through, and it is full of like this red, thick gunk. And instead of the little tube going in your butt or your booty, whatever one you're trying to clean out that day, it's going directly into a hole in your chest. Y'all, it's times I couldn't make it. I couldn't do it. My wife is very, very strong to be able to handle it. But for her to go through that, I mean, anybody that's going through that red devil treatment, God bless you. Perhaps because of her fright, Mary also became obsessively attached to one of her doctors, the resident physician who had been on duty when she first checked herself into LA County Hospital. A young married man. He had performed the tracheotomy operation that allowed her to breathe. Wells had always fallen for men who helped and protected her, and this doctor certainly had. Her crush was evident in comments she made to Bergsman when he was interviewing her in 1991. When Bergsman asked how she felt about Curtis coming to visit her in the hospital, she jokingly complained that he was blocking my action, then giggled. Girl, you better leave that married doctor alone for his wife come up there and whoop your ass. And when he inquired whether she would be resuming her liaison with Curtis or seeking a new relationship once she left the hospital, she remarked that somebody would have to practically bring me back to life for me to go into a relationship like my doctor. She then laughed so hard, so continuously, that she started gasping uncontrollably. As Mary's condition became more intense, so did her obsession. One source said that while Wells was receiving radiation and chemotherapy on an outpatient basis and living at a hotel, she kept a radio without batteries with her all the time in the belief that the young resident had put monitoring devices in her body. She said he wanted her to have the radio so he would be able to check up on her continuously. Once when she saw helicopters through the window of her room. She told friends she believed the resident had sent them. Okay, let me pause. When you go through chemo, it is a such thing as chemo brain. Now, we know Mary is scary. We know Mary is a little delusional even before the chemo. We know this. But there is a such thing as chemo brain where you just sort of just be to the left some. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to the right because there are physical changes going on in your body. But there are some things that happen mentally to you when you're going through cancer treatment. After she completed her initial treatment, Wells would visit the young doctor's clinic in the hope of running into him, show up at his office for an appointment she didn't have, or make up excuses to call him on the phone. Ooh, Mary. When shortly thereafter he left LA for unrelated reasons and moved to another city, she flew to his new city to ask him to move in with her. Mary had the absurd idea that she could capture the doctor, take him home with her, and start a whole other life, Curtis said. His response was, "I am a doctor. I don't run off with patients," he told her. It all made sense, Moore said of Mary's behavior, noting that Mary was scared all to death. Her whole life revolved around communicating with her voice. It made her die, losing the single most prized asset she had except her kids. No money, 4 children, using drugs, couldn't work, couldn't sing, everything going sideways. In spite of Mary's sometimes strange beliefs and behavior, she and Curtis stayed physically close while Wells was hospitalized. Womack also said that at one point during the hospital stay, he moved right into the hospital room with Mary and slept in the bed with her and ate breakfast too. Child, but guess what Mary wanted to do while she was in the hospital bed? She wanted to remember in the beginning of the book when Motown sent Mary on the road and she had these 2 drivers, but she had to stop off in some city, I forgot what it was, to go upstairs in a hotel room and hunt her lover. And the 2 drivers, the chauffeur plus I don't know her handler or something, was like Mary was highly sexual. There was nothing in this book to tell me that Mary was highly sexual until this point right here. I don't know if she's sexual. I don't know if she's crazy. I don't know if she's going through the cancer brain or the chemo brain. I don't know what's going on. But what she wanted was some of that Curtis Womack loving while she was undergoing treatment in the hospital. As he explained the incident, the nurse said I could stay after hours, so I sat on the bed and I'm talking and looking into Mary's eyes and kissing her. Wells, he said, had all this medical stuff on, and I just wanted to lie next to her. I was lying in the bed with her, and the night nurses were out there playing music and stayed out there a long time. Finally, Curtis said, the night nurses came in and noticed that the bed curtain was pulled, and it was dark. They got the wrong idea, he said, and they said, no, we can't have this. Not on this woman. No. They didn't make me leave, but I was kind of embarrassed. You think you're not doing anything, but you're just creeping closer. Mary put her version of what had been happening more directly. He wanted to take my catheter out, she said. In addition to the pain, loneliness, and fear, Wells had another big problem. She couldn't pay for any of her medical care. Problems with medical insurance have afflicted many other performers besides Wells. Like most of her peers at the beginning of her career, Mary had arranged for coverage through her union, the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, AFTRA, as part of a collective bargaining agreement with the recording industry known as the Phono Code. Record companies were required to contribute to the AFTRA Health Fund as well as to its retirement fund in proportion to the royalties and other monies they paid to the artists. Joyce Moore said that soon after she learned of Mary's illness and her medical insurance problems, she met with the director of AFTRA's Pension and Welfare Fund. Although AFTRA would eventually pay for most of Mary's medical treatment. Mary needed more to live on and care for sugar while being treated. Moore turned to the Rhythm and Blues Foundation just as she had on behalf of the ailing Jackie Wilson.